It's all about figuring out what you want to do, and that for me was the hardest question to answer. If you're struggling, this is to help you figure that out. Oh, yeah. It is warm out here on the streets today. I got all these flaps open too. A Sheriff Econo van. Do you think they pimp those things out? Give them sick motors? So back on the topic of the best beginner bike. I'll start off by talking about what I went through when I first started riding, which was only a year ago, and what some of my friends are going through as they start to learn how to ride. I talked a lot about how it has a lot to do with your personality, and it truly does. I think that's something that a lot of moto vloggers kind of leave out, is that you know yourself pretty well. And I think deep down you actually know what type of rider you're going to be before you even start. Have they gotten Lunar Crater City fixed yet? Kind of. When I was first looking into getting motorcycles, I actually didn't know what type of riding I would be doing. I didn't know if I wanted to get a dual sport, a supermoto, a naked bike, a sport bike, but I did lots and lots of research, talked to a lot of friends who had experience with riding, and I did come across this bike, which is an SV-1000. I'm sure that many of you know about the SV-650, which was such a popular bike during its heyday that it's really got like a literal cult following at this point. It's a cult bike. It's a great, fantastic bike. Then I found out about the SV-1000, and I was like, well, why wouldn't I just get an SV-1000? I wanted a bike that was cheap. I wanted a bike that got reasonable mileage, easy to maintain, and was good at a lot of things. This made for a perfect blend of what I was looking for, and that's why I got it. It's a great bike. It's all about figuring out what you want to do, and that for me was the hardest question to answer. Some people know immediately, oh, I'm a cruiser guy. I love cruisers. I love taking long trips. But no, there's obviously no talking you out of getting a cruiser, and that's how it should be. But again, if you're struggling, this is to help you figure that out. Once you have a grasp on your personality and what type of riding you truly think you're going to be doing, that'll definitely narrow down the choices for you. We're going to move on to the topic of what bike should you get. You got to be realistic about what you're getting yourself into. For those of you who want to get into motorcycling, you don't want to spend a lot of money, you don't want to spend a ton of time fixing up a bike, and you want something that's reasonably capable. I think the single best bike, taking all that into account, is the FZ-07. You can get it now on the used market for $5,000, in some cases $5,500, and it's a fantastic bike. It's got a relatively upright seating position, but it's sporty enough to do some fun things. I almost got an FZ-07 when I first started riding, but I found this bike. I still truly believe it's one of the best bikes to start on. It's got plenty of power, you won't get bored with it, and if you're into hooligan nonsense, it's great for wheelies. It doesn't weigh very much, and it's a pretty new design, which means that parts and all that are available, aftermarket stuff. Why? Another great bike to start on is the Duke 390. For all the reasons I listed with the FZ, except it's just a little bit smaller, and I think that's great for people with smaller frames. Now, obviously the 390 won't provide as much power, and one of the risks I've heard from people who start on slightly smaller displacement bikes is that they get bored. I think that's legitimate. You would get bored if you're expecting the bike to do more than it should. I think Yami New makes a great point about his FZ-07. He was saying that he was dissatisfied with it for a while, but But then he realized that he was really trying to get the bike to be and do something different than it really was intended for. And that would lead to some dissatisfaction. You buy this bike with certain expectations and then they're not met. The person in the GMC behind me, I don't know if you can see him in the mirror, he's keeping his distance now. He's like, what is this crazy guy doing? Another bike I want to throw in there with good beginner naked bikes like the FZ-07 is the Triumph Street Triple. For those of you who want to ride sport bikes, I really think that a 600cc class sport bike is a great way to go. I'm not saying don't start on a leader bike. I think you can start on a leader bike just fine. I just think that it's a lot more fun to ride a slower bike fast than it is to ride a fast bike slow. If you want to just go fast all the time, balls to the wall, you don't really care about doing long trips on your bike, you know, you're just going to tow it places or put it in the back of your truck, well then maybe don't get this bike. Maybe get an actual inline 4-liter bike. That might suit your desires better. Oh my lord, that was a huge pothole. Get out of the left lane. If you want to start on a supermoto or a dual sport, which I'm going to go ahead and just group those together for now, which I know is a mortal sin for some of you. WR250R is a fantastic bike. Dual sport, you can supermoto it if you want. Or the Husqvarna 701. Great bike as well. You can get it as a dual sport or a supermoto. Chevy Trax? What is that? If you're the kind of person who wants to start on a vintage bike, either for budget reasons or because of the style, I think one of the most iconic vintage bikes is the CB750 from Honda. Highly recommend it. There's a lot of good examples out there in great condition. People do a lot of work to them, and you can get them for, they're reliable, and you can get them for a pretty good price. Now remember, with all of these motorcycles, they're all carbureted. And if you know anything about carburetors, they can be a royal pain in the ass to work on. Does the Grom make a good starter bike? I would say no. Because you'll get bored. You'll get bored because it's a Grom. And the Grom makes a great second bike, I think, because it'll fill in the gaps of whatever your first bike is. I mean, namely the ability to go anywhere without restriction, basically. But if you start on the Grom, I think you'll find that its lack of power and ability to travel on the interstate gets old, and you'll get bored. And I think if you're a new rider, the last thing you want to do is get bored. This is a new and exciting hobby. Hopefully it's something that turns into a passion, and you don't want to get bored. But no, I would not start on the Grom. Even though the Grom has a 4-speed gearbox, it's got low torque. It might be good for training. You know, if a friend of yours has one, you can use it as like training wheels. But I would not buy one as a first bike. I want to be helpful and suggest real bikes instead of just saying, just get whatever you want and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Well, definitely do, but just go into it with a little bit of background knowledge and understand that there's such a wide range of bikes out there that you really, I understand that it's overwhelming to make a choice. So this is just for your reference. It's just to help you and to give you some things to think about. I think I'm gonna go get some gasolina. How many lows could Rob Lowe rob if Rob Lowe could rob Lowe's? Will Smith Smith. Yeah, Will Smith. Hey, you got the green light, homie. Yeah. Ooh, I can feel the coldness of the fuel coming through the tank and cooling my nutsack. Yeah. No, I do not want a recipe. I know how to make my own stuff. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I would appreciate it if you also shared it so that everybody can see the smoking motorcycle. Smoking hot, am I right? Yeah, do you see that? Okay. Do I have a fire alarm in here? Wow. That's really bad. Well, I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Good girl. Good girl. Come here.